Hello, hello, hello. Great afternoon, early evening, great Friday, early evening, everyone. Tis Catherine Beasley with today's episode of All Things Alzheimer's, right? I want to talk to you about when your loved one's ability to perform certain activities of daily living are affected by Alzheimer's disease, right? They are very much used to being able to feed themselves, being able to bathe themselves, right? Walking and doing things on their own behalf. But at some point, they may be incapable of doing it or incapable of doing so without your assistance. And so we want to talk about some ways that you can ease the burden on one aspect of it, right? Because again, there are multiple activities of daily living, but I want to talk about one specifically, which is feeding. And so one of the things I found with my mom is with the progression of the disease, she proclaimed that she wasn't as hungry anymore. So she wouldn't eat as much. Something else that was an issue with my mom was her ability to chew, right? She had dentures and she would always, oddly enough, take them out in order to eat her food and then put them back and then they broke. And it was just a bunch of things that were happening with her, right? And so um, I think that because she was having issues with chewing, she wouldn't want to eat as much any longer. And also her appetite did change. She didn't like the same foods that she used to like all the time. So things to that effect were going on. But one of the things that I made sure to do for her, I didn't wait until she actually got to the point where she couldn't do this sort of thing for her any longer. I just proactively, preemptively started making sure that I would kind of cut her meat for her and prepare her food so that she can just start to eat without having to think about and remember how to do certain things. Again, I don't know if she wasn't able of doing it, unable to do so for herself, but that was something that I did and that you can do if you find that your loved one is having trouble during mealtime, right? The bowl, using a bowl instead of a plate, a flat plate, so that the food won't spill over and end up everywhere. Using a fork, using a spoon instead of a fork, or using a spork instead of a fork, so that it's easier for them to eat the food, right? To scoop it up to be able to eat the food. Um, Using a plate that has edges on it too, right? So not a whole bowl, but a plate that has like a ledge around it so that the food doesn't get moved all around is something else that you can do. The types of food. So with my mom, I made sure to make food that was softer for her and not as tough for her to chew. So making sure that you're giving them the types of food that will make it easier for them to consume it instead of, steak all the time, say. Um, and if you need to puree some foods for them, then that's something that you can do as well. Make sure it's flavorful though, because hospital pureed foods left a lot to be desired for my mom. You want to make sure that if you do puree, you're still seasoning the food to make it taste good as well. Some other things, getting the right condiments. My mom would get confused about certain condiments that she would use on her foods. So I would have them available for her in advance so that she wouldn't try to put ketchup on her pancakes or something like that, right? So making sure that the right condiments and other things are available easily for them and they don't have to think about, well, what usually goes on top of this type of food for them. In terms of drinking, if they are incapable of or having more difficulty with holding a cup or not spilling when they're drinking, then getting a sippy cup and get a grown person sippy cup or one of the cups with a straw in it so that they can sip from the straw if they're still capable of doing so is very helpful. A cup with a handle on it as well so that they can really still grip the cup without spilling it is going to using tray tables. So if they're unable to sit up at a table, maybe you have a high table with chairs to eat on or something like that, then making sure that they have a tray table that's available for them, right? The TV little tables that you put in front of you and sit watch TV. Get those and even put a chair there if it's not as comfortable having them sit on the couch with that in front of them is helpful. if they have a change in their appetites, instead of trying to force them, one, to eat when you want them to, you allow them to dictate when their meal times are, and so that they will be more participative in the feeding process. And their appetite changes, like the desire for different foods changes. So they might develop a sweet tooth, in which case they want dessert type of foods all the time. And for my mom, when she wasn't hungry and wouldn't eat food, she would love to eat cake, would love to eat her ice cream. So as long as I was getting something in her, it worked for me. She'd eat some stuff, but then she would eat the cake and ice cream. So you have to be ready to kind of pick your battles. The goal is to make sure that they're getting some nutrients in them and not starving. So if there's something that they eat, eat more often than other things, then give them that food more often to ensure that they are eating. Another thing that happened with my mom is because she had cataracts and glaucoma, and a side effect or symptom of Alzheimer's as well, it affects your eyesight too. And so with all of that happening, she had floaters, and she understood floaters, but she couldn't comprehend that meant that maybe she was seeing stuff like floating around in her eyelids, right? But she would think it was an insect, right? She'd think it was flies flying all around. She thought it was roaches, right? She thought mice were running around and would attack it all the time. You'd see her hitting at the table or hitting at herself, potentially spilling stuff, because because of the floaters, she thought she was seeing stuff when she actually wasn't. And you tell her, like, she understood when you explained what floaters were. She'd say, "Yep, I know floaters, but that wasn't a floater," right? She wouldn't believe me. So in terms of, like, especially this happened when she was drinking something, she would always think there was something inside of her drink floating around, even though there wasn't. So I got a cup that covered the drink so she couldn't even see inside of the cup any longer, to help mitigate her feeling like, right, and me having to toss out something because she wasn't going to drink it because she thought she saw a bug in it or something like that. So you just have to be flexible. You just have to be patient, right? And that's just a running theme, being patient throughout this disease and your interaction with your loved one. But don't be so stringent in what the way things were and the way they should be that you miss the point, which is making sure that you meet them where they are and you make life easier for them and thereby for yourself, because you are making the concessions when you need to and not being a stickler for certain behaviors that you want to see happen when they're just incapable of living at that level any longer. So I hope this was helpful to you. And if so, again, let me know in the comments. And yeah, let's chat. Come on and join my Facebook group, bit.ly/the Caregivers Connect, where we will continue these discussions and where we will engage in others. Like, if you have some experiences that you are having with your loved one and you want to have questions answered, or just to have a sense of community that you can go in and talk about this with others who are experiencing the same thing, please do join our group. We're here, we're waiting for you, and we'd love to serve you. And with that, I say good night. Thank you.